Claire Whittaker thought she was only embarrassing an old woman at a family dinner, but she had no idea that one cruel sentence would become the spark that turned Eleanor Whittaker into a voice millions of strangers would someday call home. The dining room in the Whittaker house glowed under warm pendant lights, polished oak floors reflecting the golden shine of a Sunday evening in suburban Ohio. Outside, the first cool breath of fall moved through the maple trees, scattering red leaves across the driveway. Inside, the table was crowded with roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, warm rolls, and the kind of polite family laughter that often hides small resentments underneath. It was Noah Whittaker's 15th birthday, and everyone had gathered because that was what families were supposed to do, even when love had become tangled with old disappointments. Eleanor sat near the end of the table in a pale blue cardigan she had owned for almost 10 years. Her white hair was pinned neatly behind her ears, her hands folded beside a glass of iced tea. She had brought Noah a handmade recipe box, sanded smooth, filled with cards written in her careful cursive. Each card held not only a recipe, but a memory. His grandfather's Sunday pancakes. The cinnamon cookies Lily loved after school. The chicken soup Eleanor made during every winter cold. Noah opened it with a polite smile, but before he could say anything, Claire leaned back in her chair and gave a soft laugh that was not meant to be kind. "Well, that is sweet," she said, her voice carrying just enough brightness to sound harmless to anyone who did not know her. "But recipes are not exactly a college fund, are they?" The room changed. Forks slowed. Conversations thinned. Eleanor looked at Claire, not with anger, but with the quiet tiredness of someone who had heard money used as a measuring stick too many times. Claire was 41, sharply dressed in a cream blouse and gold earrings, her blonde hair smoothed into a perfect shoulder-length cut. She had the polished confidence of someone who believed presentation was proof of worth. Eleanor, by contrast, looked like what Claire often called simple. No designer purse. No expensive watch. No lake house. No retirement account large enough to impress anyone at a dinner table. Daniel Whittaker, Eleanor's son and Claire's husband, cleared his throat, but he did not speak quickly enough. Claire continued, smiling toward the children as if offering a practical lesson. "I only mean we should be honest with them. Kids need to understand reality. Love is wonderful, but love does not pay tuition, and stories do not build futures." Noah lowered his eyes to the recipe box. Lily, 13, sat beside him with her hands clenched in her lap. She looked at her grandmother, waiting for Eleanor to defend herself, waiting for any adult to say that Claire had gone too far. But the silence stretched across the table like a white sheet. Eleanor reached for her napkin and smoothed it once over her knee. Her fingers trembled slightly, so slightly only Lily noticed. "I suppose that is true in one way," Eleanor said softly. "But there are different kinds of futures." Claire gave another small laugh. "Of course, Mom. But when people talk about leaving something behind, they usually mean something that actually helps." The words landed harder than she intended, or perhaps exactly as she intended. Eleanor's eyes moved to the recipe box in Noah's hands. For one brief second, she remembered her late husband, Thomas, standing in their old kitchen with flour on his shirt, telling her that a family recipe was only a love letter you could eat. She remembered raising Daniel through years when every dollar had a job before it arrived. She remembered school lunches packed before dawn, second-hand coats, repaired shoes, birthday cakes made from scratch because store-bought ones cost too much. She had not left wealth because she had spent her life spending herself. No one at the table said that. Not yet. Eleanor smiled gently at Noah and said, "You do not have to keep it if you do not want to." Noah's face flushed with shame. "No, Grandma, I like it. I really do." But his voice was small, and Claire's words had already done their work. They had placed a price tag on an old woman's heart and found it lacking. The room went quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that follows a sentence people know should never have been spoken. Eleanor pushed her chair back carefully. The legs made a soft scrape against the floor. I should get home before it gets too dark, she said. Daniel finally stood. Mom, wait. But Eleanor lifted one hand with a tenderness that made his guilt look even smaller. It is all right, honey. It is a school night tomorrow. Lily followed her to the front door while the others stayed frozen around the table. The hallway smelled faintly of vanilla from the birthday cake, and the porch light cast Eleanor's shadow long across the welcome mat. Grandma, Lily whispered, I love the recipe box. Eleanor looked down at her granddaughter, and in that moment her face softened in a way the dinner table had not deserved. Then it is already worth something, she said. Lily hugged her, thin arms wrapping around the cardigan, and Eleanor held on a second longer than usual. When she stepped into the cool evening, she carried no anger in her purse, no plan for revenge, no speech prepared for the people who had reduced her life to a bank balance. She carried only a small ache beneath her ribs and the familiar dignity of women who have learned to cry after the door closes. Her little white sedan waited at the curb, 10 years old, clean, and reliable. As Eleanor drove the 6 miles back to her bungalow, the neighborhoods changed from wide lawns and brick fronts to narrower streets lined with older houses and porch swings. Her home sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd, a modest one-story with faded shutters, a vegetable patch in the backyard, and wind chimes that sang whenever the evening breeze moved through. She unlocked the door and stepped into the silence. The house did not feel empty exactly. It felt full of things nobody else had thought to value. On the wall near the kitchen hung Thomas's old fishing hat. Beside the stove stood jars of flour, sugar, oats, and cinnamon. A quilt she had made from Daniel's childhood shirts rested over the back of the couch. Shelves held photo albums, church cookbooks, birthday cards, and notebooks filled with memories in blue ink. To Claire, none of it looked like inheritance. To Eleanor, it was the map of a life. She set her purse on the chair and took the recipe card she had copied for Noah, the one for apple pie with brown sugar crust. She ran her thumb over the words and laughed once, barely more than a breath. No wealth, she murmured. The phrase followed her around the kitchen while she filled the kettle and turned on the lamp above the table. It was not the first time she had been reminded that she had little money. Bank statements had reminded her. Medical bills after Thomas's final year had reminded her. The grocery store reminded her each time prices rose. But hearing it at a family table, in front of the children she loved, made the truth feel different. Not poor. Erased. She opened the drawer beneath the counter and took out a stack of old letters tied with a blue ribbon. Thomas had written them during the early years of their marriage when he worked road repair 2 counties over and came home only on weekends. In one letter, he had written, Ellie, if we never have much, let us at least make sure this house is rich and welcome. Eleanor sat very still. The clock ticked above the refrigerator. A car passed outside, headlights sliding across the curtains. Then came a soft knock at the back door. Eleanor frowned, rose slowly, and found Lily standing on the porch in a red hoodie, her backpack hanging from one shoulder, breath puffing in the cool air. Lily, sweetheart, does your mother know you are here? Dad dropped me off, Lily said quickly. He is waiting in the car. I asked him if I could check on you. Eleanor looked beyond her and saw Daniel's truck by the curb, engine running, his face turned away with the heavy posture of a man ashamed too late. Eleanor opened the door wider. Come in for a minute before you freeze. Lily stepped inside and immediately looked around the kitchen the way she always did, as if it were the safest room in the world. The old yellow curtains, the round table, the ceramic rooster by the sink, the smell of tea and cinnamon. This was not poverty to her. This was Saturday mornings, snow days, scraped knees, and somebody always having time. Lily sat across from Eleanor and placed both hands on the table. Grandma. Can I ask you something? Anything. If money did not matter, what would you leave us? Eleanor inhaled slowly. The question did not wound her. It opened something. She looked at the notebooks stacked near the window, at the recipes, at the photographs, at the tiny pencil marks on the pantry door where she had measured the grandchildren's height year after year. "Everything I remember," she said. Lily's eyes brightened. "Then leave that." Eleanor smiled sadly. "Honey, memories do not fit in a savings account." "No," Lily said, leaning forward with the sudden certainty only a child can carry without apology. "But they fit in a video." Eleanor blinked. "A video?" Lily was already reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a small tripod, the kind used for phones, and placed it carefully on the table like she was setting down a serious business proposal. "For school, we had to make a family history project. My teacher said oral history matters because people disappear twice, first when they pass away, and again when nobody tells their stories." Eleanor's face changed. The words settled in the kitchen, quiet and holy. Lily continued, softer now. "You always tell stories while you cook. What if we record them? Just for us. For me and Noah. For the family." Eleanor gave a nervous laugh. "Nobody wants to watch an old woman talk about pie." "I do," Lily said. The answer came so quickly that Eleanor looked away. Her eyes had begun to shine. On the stove, the kettle started to hum. Lily stood and moved around the kitchen with careful excitement, setting the phone on the tripod, checking the angle, turning on the overhead light. The picture was not perfect. The counter looked cluttered. The wallpaper behind Eleanor had begun peeling near one corner. The old clock ticked too loudly. But Lily saw none of that as failure. She saw her grandmother in the center of the frame, wearing a soft blue cardigan, hands worn from work, eyes steady despite the hurt of the evening. "What should I say?" Eleanor asked. "Just be you," Lily said. "Tell me how to make the apple pie. And maybe tell the story about Grandpa meeting you in the rain." Eleanor stood behind the counter and arranged apples in a wooden bowl. For a moment, she looked uncomfortable, almost embarrassed by the little black eye of the phone pointed at her. Then she picked up a paring knife, peeled the first apple in one long curling ribbon, and something in her posture remembered itself. "Well," she began, voice gentle, "my name is Eleanor Whitaker, but my grandchildren call me Grandma Ellie. Tonight we are making the pie my husband used to request every Thanksgiving, even when it was not Thanksgiving." Lily smiled behind the phone. Eleanor continued, measuring flour, sugar, and butter with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. At first, her words were careful. Then the memory warmed her. She told how she had been 22, working at the county library, when a sudden rainstorm trapped her under the awning with a young man carrying a paper bag full of peaches. He offered her one because he had no umbrella and nothing else useful to give. She married him 2 years later. Lily forgot to check the screen. She simply listened. Eleanor laughed softly as she rolled the crust. "Your grandfather said that day he knew I was the one because I accepted a peach from a stranger but refused to let him walk me home until I knew his last name." The kitchen seemed to breathe again. The humiliation from dinner did not vanish, but it moved farther away, pushed back by flour on the counter, apples in the bowl, and a story that had survived longer than anyone's cruelty. When the pie slid into the oven, Lily pressed stop. The first video was 28 minutes long, uneven, badly lit, and interrupted twice by the refrigerator motor. Eleanor watched a few seconds of herself on the screen and covered her mouth. "Oh my, I look so old." Lily shook her head. "You look like my grandma." That was all. That was enough. Daniel knocked gently on the back door a few minutes later. Lily packed up the tripod, but before she left, she turned back. "Can we do another one next week?" Eleanor hesitated. Then she looked at the cooling scraps of dough on the counter and the phone in Lily's hand. "All right," she said. "But only for family." Lily nodded, though some secret hope had already taken root in her. By the time Eleanor went to bed that night, The first video had been uploaded to a private account Lily named Grandma Ellie's Table. There were no subscribers, no comments, no promise of anything beyond one child trying to preserve one grandmother. But in the quiet blue glow of Lily's bedroom later that night, she changed one setting from private to public. Not because she wanted fame. Not because she understood algorithms. She did it because something about her grandmother's voice felt too warm to lock away. By morning, 17 people had watched. By lunch, there were 43. By Friday, the number was over 1,000. Eleanor did not know any of this yet. She was at home folding laundry, humming an old hymn, unaware that strangers in Iowa, Texas, Oregon, and Maine had already sat at her kitchen table through a screen and felt, for 28 minutes, less alone. One comment appeared beneath the video just after midnight. It came from a woman in Arizona whose username Eleanor would later remember for the rest of her life. She wrote, "My grandmother passed away last year. I did not realize how much I missed hearing someone call butter by feel instead of measurement. Thank you for making me feel like I had dinner with her again." When Lily read it, she pressed both hands over her mouth. The room went silent, though she was the only one in it. Something had begun, quietly, without permission from the people who believed Worth had to arrive wearing good shoes and carrying a balance sheet. The next afternoon, Lily arrived at Eleanor's bungalow with her school laptop, her phone, and a look of nervous excitement she tried very hard to hide. Eleanor had just finished watering the small herb pots on the back steps, basil, rosemary, and mint lined up in chipped clay containers Thomas had bought at a yard sale 20 years earlier. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon because Eleanor had warmed a slice of yesterday's apple pie for lunch, and the quiet kitchen still carried the softness of memory. Lily set her backpack on the chair and said, "Grandma, I need to show you something, but you have to promise not to panic." Eleanor paused with a dish towel in her hands. "Sweetheart, that is not usually how good news begins." Lily opened the laptop and turned the screen toward her. There, in a small rectangle, was Eleanor standing behind her own counter, peeling apples, telling the story of the rainstorm and the young man with the peaches. Beneath the video, the number had climbed far beyond anything Eleanor understood. 3,800 views. 216 comments. Eleanor leaned closer, blinking as if the screen might correct itself. "Those are strangers?" she asked. Lily nodded. "From everywhere. Ohio, Kentucky, Arizona, California, even someone from Alaska." Eleanor sat down slowly. Her first feeling was not pride. It was exposure. She saw the old wallpaper, the chipped mixing bowl, the cardigan sleeves pushed up over her wrists. She saw the soft sag in her face, the age in her hands, the little pauses when she had searched for words. Claire's voice returned from the dinner table, cold and polished. "Love does not pay tuition. Stories do not build futures." Eleanor swallowed. "Lily, I thought this was just for us." "I know," Lily said quickly, her face flushing. "I am sorry. I changed it to public because it felt important. People are not making fun of you. They love it. Look." She scrolled through the comments, reading them aloud one by one. A man from Kansas wrote that he had not heard anyone talk like his mother in years. A young woman from Florida said she made the pie with her daughter and cried when Eleanor described Thomas offering her a peach. A widower in Michigan wrote, "I ate dinner alone tonight, but your video made the house feel warmer." Eleanor pressed her fingers to her lips. The kitchen went still except for the hum of the refrigerator. She had expected judgment because judgment was what the world often handed to people who looked ordinary, old, or poor. Instead, strangers had found their way to her table and thanked her for leaving the light on. By that evening, Daniel had heard about the video from Lily and stopped by after work. He stood in the doorway wearing his loosened tie and the same guilty expression he had carried since Noah's birthday dinner. "Mom," he said gently, "Lily showed me the comments." Eleanor turned away to rinse a cup. That did not need rinsing. It was just an accident. Maybe, Daniel said. But maybe it was a good one. She looked at him then, and he felt the full weight of what he had failed to defend at the table. He cleared his throat. What Claire said was wrong. I should have said that right away. Eleanor studied her son. She still saw the boy who used to fall asleep on the couch waiting for his father to come home from roadwork. She still remembered mending his baseball pants by hand and saving nickels in a coffee can for his field trips. A mother's memory can make a grown man look very young. You were trying to keep peace, she said. Daniel's eyes lowered. Sometimes keeping peace just means letting the wrong person have the room. The words hung between them, heavy but honest. Eleanor nodded once, not to punish him, but to accept the truth finally spoken. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily came every Tuesday and Saturday. They recorded Eleanor making chicken soup, oatmeal bread, meatloaf with brown sugar glaze, and peach cobbler from canned peaches because Eleanor said not every family could afford fresh ones in January. Each video began awkwardly, with Eleanor smoothing her apron and asking whether the phone was already on. Each one ended with a story that had nothing to do with cooking and everything to do with surviving life gently. She spoke about stretching a $20 grocery budget for 5 days, about the neighbor who left diapers on the porch when Daniel was a baby, about Thomas working overtime so Eleanor could buy winter boots for their son without putting them on a credit card. The channel grew quietly at first, then suddenly. 10,000 views. 30,000. 100,000. Lily made a simple banner that read Grandma Ellie's table, with a drawing of a pie and a coffee cup. Noah, still embarrassed by what had happened at dinner, began watching from his bedroom without telling anyone. One night, he texted Lily 3 words. She is amazing. Lily stared at the message and smiled. But not everyone saw beauty in what was happening. Claire found out on a Thursday morning while standing in line at a coffee shop near her office. 2 women ahead of her were laughing softly over a phone, not mocking, but smiling with the kind of tenderness people save for something that touches a hidden place. One of them said, I watched that grandma again last night. The one from Ohio. She reminds me of my Nana. Claire looked over without meaning to. On the screen was Eleanor, standing in her kitchen, teaching viewers how to fold dumplings into chicken broth. Claire froze. Her first thought was disbelief. Her second was irritation. By the time she got home that evening, the irritation had sharpened into something colder. Eleanor was at the kitchen table with Lily when Claire arrived without calling first. Her heels clicked across the old linoleum as if the floor owed her an apology. She held up her phone, the video paused on Eleanor's face. So this is what we are doing now? Claire said. Eleanor looked up, startled but calm. Hello, Claire. Lily's shoulders tensed. Claire glanced at the tripod on the counter and gave a laugh that made the room smaller. A cooking channel. Really? Eleanor folded her hands. It started as a family project. Publicly? Claire asked. With your kitchen and your personal stories and our family name attached to it? Lily stood. Mom, people like it. Claire turned to her daughter. Lily, popularity is not the same as dignity. Eleanor absorbed the sentence without flinching, but Lily's face reddened. That is when Claire looked back at Eleanor and delivered the words she would later wish she could swallow. I suppose poverty has a channel now. The silence that followed was so complete even the wind chimes outside seemed to stop. Eleanor's eyes stayed steady, but something behind them dimmed. Claire mistook that quiet for weakness. She continued, saying the internet could be cruel, saying Eleanor was embarrassing herself, saying people were only watching because they found the old house quaint and sad. Every sentence was dressed as concern, but each one carried the same old belief, that Eleanor's life was too small to be seen. Lily's voice trembled. That is not true. The comments are kind. They say she makes them feel less alone. Claire sighed as if kindness were childish evidence. Sweetheart, strangers on the internet are not family. Eleanor finally spoke. No, Claire. But sometimes strangers are more careful with what they are given. Claire froze mid-breath. For the first time, she had no immediate answer. Eleanor rose from the table and gently removed her apron. Her hands were steady now. I think we are done filming for today, she said. Lily looked devastated. Grandma, please do not stop because of this. Eleanor touched her granddaughter's cheek. I am not stopping because of fear. I am stopping because I need to remember why I began. After Claire left, the kitchen felt colder. Eleanor sat alone long after Lily went home, reading comments until the words blurred. One message said, "My mother has memory loss, but she smiled when she heard your voice." Another said, "I made your soup after my divorce, and it was the first meal I finished in weeks." Eleanor closed the laptop. The old house creaked around her. She did not want fame. She did not want attention. She certainly did not want another family argument. Yet something had shifted. The question was no longer whether she had anything worth leaving. The question was whether she had the courage to leave it where people could find it. If this inspirational family story is touching your heart, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a grandmother, parent, or quiet hero who changed your life. Keep watching until the end, because this grandma YouTube legacy, this dignity story, and these life lessons are about to reveal an unexpected turn no one in Eleanor's family saw coming. The next morning, Eleanor woke before sunrise, as she had for most of her life. Pale blue light rested against the curtains, and the kitchen was cool beneath her slippers. She made coffee in the old drip machine Thomas had once repaired twice rather than replace, then sat at the table with the laptop closed in front of her. For nearly 15 minutes, she did not touch it. She listened to the house. The furnace clicking on. The soft rattle of a delivery truck somewhere down the block. The wind moving through dry leaves outside the back door. Claire's words had followed her into sleep and waited for her in the morning, but they were no longer alone. Beside them stood the comments, hundreds of quiet voices asking for another recipe, another memory, another seat at the table. Eleanor opened the laptop. The newest video had crossed 200,000 views. She did not understand the number, not truly. It felt too large to belong to her little kitchen. Then she saw an email address Lily had created for the channel. It showed 94 unread messages. Eleanor clicked the first one. It was from a nurse in Colorado who watched during her break at a hospital cafeteria. She wrote that Eleanor's stories reminded her why tenderness mattered on hard days. The second was from a college student in Boston who said he had used Eleanor's grocery tips to cook his first real meal away from home. The third was from a retired veteran in North Carolina who said he had not baked since his wife passed, but Eleanor's peach cobbler made him take down the mixing bowl again. Eleanor read until her coffee went cold. Each message felt like a hand resting briefly over hers. Not demanding. Not flattering. Simply grateful. Around noon, Lily arrived, expecting to find her grandmother still uncertain. Instead, Eleanor had flour on the counter, a clean apron tied at her waist, and a handwritten list beside the mixing bowl. Lily stopped in the doorway. Grandma? Eleanor looked up with a small smile. I thought today we might make potato rolls. Your grandfather said they could make a bad day apologize. Lily's face broke into relief. You want to record? Eleanor nodded. But this time, before we start, I want to say something. Lily set up the phone carefully, checked the light, and pressed record. Eleanor stood behind the counter, not polished, not rehearsed, not trying to look younger or richer or more impressive than she was. She looked directly into the small lens. Good afternoon, friends, she said. I almost did not come back today. Someone close to me worried that this little kitchen might not be the sort of thing worth sharing. Maybe some of you have felt that way too, like your house is too small, your hands are too worn, your stories are too ordinary. She paused, and Lily felt the room grow still around them. But I have been thinking. Ordinary is where most love lives. It lives in soup when someone is sick, in rolls wrapped in a towel, in a chair pulled out after a long day. So today, we are making potato rolls, and if your kitchen is small, you are still welcome here. Lily's eyes filled with tears behind the phone. That video changed everything. It spread faster than all the others combined, not because of perfect editing, but because people recognized the tremble beneath Eleanor's courage. Comments arrived by the thousands. People wrote about grandmothers, foster mothers, church ladies, neighbors, lunchroom workers, and quiet fathers who had loved them without applause. They shared recipes in the comments like family heirlooms passed across a digital table. Within a week, a local reporter from Columbus emailed Lily asking for an interview. Eleanor said no 3 times. Lily said, "Grandma, you do not have to perform. Just tell the truth." So the reporter came on a rainy Friday afternoon, wearing a navy raincoat and carrying a small recorder. She sat at Eleanor's kitchen table and asked why the channel mattered. Eleanor looked around the room, at the faded wallpaper, the recipe cards, the bowl of rising dough near the stove. "I thought a legacy had to be money," she said quietly. "Then people reminded me that sometimes a voice can be an inheritance too." The article ran Sunday morning with a photograph of Eleanor holding a tray of potato rolls. By Monday, the channel had passed 100,000 subscribers. Lily screamed so loudly Daniel thought something had happened. Noah came over after school and stood awkwardly in the kitchen doorway. He held the recipe box Eleanor had given him at his birthday dinner. "I made the pancakes," he said, staring at the floor. "The ones from Grandpa's card." Eleanor's face softened. "How did they turn out?" "Kind of lumpy." She smiled. "Your grandfathers were lumpy for 3 years." Noah laughed, then grew serious. "I am sorry I did not say anything that night." Eleanor walked over and placed both hands around his. 15 is young to know how to stand up in a quiet room. He shook his head. "I should have." She held his gaze. "Then learn now. That is what growing is." The room went silent, but this time the silence healed something. Later that evening, Noah asked if he could help film the next video. Eleanor handed him the recipe box. "Pick one," she said. He chose Sunday pancakes. And for the first time since the birthday dinner, the gift Claire had mocked sat open on the counter, not as proof of poverty, but as the beginning of a family finding its way back to what mattered. The channel crossed 500,000 subscribers on a Tuesday afternoon while Eleanor was standing in line at Miller's Grocery, comparing the price of 2 bags of flour. Lily called 3 times before Eleanor answered, her voice shaking so hard Eleanor thought something was wrong. "Grandma," Lily said, "we did it." Eleanor shifted the phone against her ear and looked down at the 5-pound bag in her cart. "Did what, sweetheart?" "500,000 people," Lily whispered. 500,000. Eleanor stood very still beneath the bright grocery store lights while carts rolled past and a clerk stacked cans of soup near aisle 4. 500,000 was not a number she could picture. She could picture a church basement full of people. She could picture the crowd at a high school football game. She could picture every chair around her Thanksgiving table filled. But 500,000 strangers, gathered by the sound of her voice, felt impossible. That evening, Daniel, Noah, and Lily came over with a small cake from the bakery, vanilla with blue frosting that read, "Grandma Ellie's table, 500,000 friends." Eleanor laughed when she saw it, then cried before the candles were lit. Noah filmed her reaction, and for once, Eleanor did not ask him to stop. The kitchen that Claire had once called embarrassing now glowed with warm lamplight, phone stands, handwritten recipe cards, and 3 generations moving around one another with new tenderness. Noah had become the careful one, checking sound and making sure the old refrigerator was quiet before recording. Lily handled comments, emails, and editing, her school laptop covered with stickers. Daniel fixed a loose cabinet door and installed a brighter light above the counter, not to make the kitchen look expensive, but to help viewers see Eleanor's hands. Money did begin to come, slowly at first, then steadily. Advertising revenue. A cookbook offer from a small publisher. A kitchenware company asking to sponsor a video. Eleanor treated every email as if it were a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. She said no to anything she did not believe in. She refused products she would not use. When a brand offered her $20,000 to promote a luxury mixer, she looked at the price tag and shook her head. "Most of my people have wooden spoons," she said. "We will stay with wooden spoons." Lily smiled because she understood. The channel was not becoming powerful because Eleanor had changed. It was becoming powerful because she would not. Claire noticed the money before she noticed the meaning. At first, she mentioned it casually during dinner, asking whether Eleanor had consulted an accountant. Then she began sending articles about brand strategy, audience growth, and monetization. She said things like, "There is real potential here," and, "We should professionalize this before someone takes advantage of you." Eleanor thanked her politely and kept making soup. But Claire's interest sharpened when the Columbus Community Arts Center invited Eleanor to headline a local storytelling and food heritage event. The flyer showed Eleanor holding a tray of potato rolls, smiling in her blue cardigan. Beneath her name were the words, "A celebration of family memory, dignity, and the stories that feed us." Claire saw the flyer on Facebook before Eleanor had even mentioned it. By sunset, she was at the bungalow, standing in the kitchen with her phone in one hand and an expression too bright to be sincere. "Mom, this is wonderful," she said. "Really? I think it is time we talk about representation." Eleanor looked up from sorting recipe cards. Representation? Branding, speaking opportunities, media requests. Claire set her purse on the chair as if claiming space. "You need someone who understands how these things work." Lily is sweet, but she is 13. Eleanor's eyes moved to Lily, who sat stiffly at the table. Noah stood by the sink, suddenly silent. Claire continued, unaware that the room had already begun turning against her. "I can help shape the story. Make it more polished. Less," she paused, searching for a careful word and failing, "homemade." Eleanor placed one recipe card on the stack. "What story would you shape, Claire?" Claire smiled. "The family story. How we all came together to build something meaningful." The old clock ticked above the stove. Lily stared at her mother. Noah's jaw tightened. Daniel, who had arrived quietly at the back door, heard enough to understand the road his wife had chosen. Eleanor did not raise her voice. "We did come together," she said. "But not all at once." Claire's smile thinned. "I am trying to help." "I know," Eleanor replied. "But sometimes people want to help carry the basket only after they smell the bread." The room went silent. Claire's face flushed, not from shame yet, but from being seen. The community event took place on a Saturday evening in late spring. The Arts Center had once been an old brick schoolhouse, its tall windows glowing amber as families stepped inside carrying umbrellas from a soft rain. Folding chairs filled the main hall. A long table displayed recipe cards printed from viewer submissions, potato soup from Idaho, cornbread from Georgia, blueberry buckle from Maine. People had driven from nearby towns just to meet Eleanor. Some brought cookbooks for her to sign. Others brought photographs of grandparents, mothers, neighbors, and old kitchens that no longer existed. Eleanor wore her blue cardigan, the same one Claire had once made seem small, and Lily pinned a tiny white rose near the collar. "You look perfect, Grandma," she said. Eleanor looked around at the crowd, overwhelmed. "I look like myself." "Exactly," Lily said. Claire arrived late in a cream suit, her hair smooth, her smile ready for witnesses. She moved through the room greeting people as if she had organized the evening, placing a hand on Eleanor's shoulder whenever someone lifted a phone for a picture. Daniel watched her carefully. Noah saw it too. When the program began, the event coordinator introduced Eleanor as a woman who turned a small kitchen into a national table. The applause rose warm and full. Eleanor stepped to the microphone, but before she could speak, Claire moved beside her with practiced confidence. "We are just so proud of what our family has created," Claire said, leaning toward the microphone. "From the beginning, we believed Grandma Ellie's table could be more than a channel. It could be a legacy brand." Lily froze. Noah turned sharply. Daniel closed his eyes. Eleanor stood very still, one hand resting on the podium. Claire continued, smiling toward the audience. "We encouraged Mom to share her simple wisdom with the world, and now we are excited to guide this next chapter together." The words were smooth. The lie beneath them was not. Lily's hand moved to her laptop on the front table. She had prepared a short tribute video for Eleanor, clips from the first recordings, early comments, and family moments. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. She did not want to humiliate her mother. She wanted the truth to stop being buried under polish. When she clicked play, the large screen behind them lit up with Eleanor's first video. The audience smiled as younger Eleanor, nervous and gentle, introduced apple pie. Then the tribute shifted to a behind-the-scenes clip Lily had forgotten she had saved, the phone still recording after the first family conflict that followed the channel's discovery. Claire's voice filled the hall, crisp and unmistakable. "A cooking channel. Really?" Then another line, colder than the first. "I suppose poverty has a channel now." The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Claire's smile vanished as if the lights had gone out behind her eyes. A woman in the second row lowered her program. Someone near the back drew in a slow breath. Lily quickly paused the video, her face pale, realizing the moment had gone further than she intended. "Mom," she whispered. Claire looked at the screen, then at Eleanor, then at the crowd that had heard what she had worked so hard to hide. For the first time in many years, she had no elegant sentence ready. Eleanor gently touched Lily's shoulder, then stepped closer to the microphone. Her voice, when it came, was not angry. It was steady enough to make anger unnecessary. "My granddaughter did not mean to hurt anyone," she said. "But sometimes the truth walks into a room before we are ready to receive it." Claire stared at the floor. Eleanor continued, looking not at Claire alone, but at everyone. "I was told that love does not pay tuition, and that stories do not build futures. Maybe there is some truth in that. But I have learned something from all of you. A legacy is not what you take from people. It is what remains in them after you love them." The audience remained still. Eleanor turned toward Claire, and her face held no revenge, only a sadness deep enough to be mercy. "I did not build this to prove I was rich. I built it so my grandchildren would remember who loved them. And somehow, the world remembered too." Claire's eyes filled, but Eleanor did not force forgiveness into a public performance. She simply gave her daughter-in-law the dignity of silence. Then she invited Lily and Noah to stand beside her. Daniel joined them, his hand resting lightly on his mother's back. The applause began softly, then grew until the old schoolhouse seemed to tremble with it. Claire stood just outside the circle of light, finally understanding that the woman she had measured by money had built something no bank could appraise. In the months after the community event, Claire changed slowly, which is the only way change becomes believable. She did not become gentle overnight. She still liked control, still corrected people too quickly, still measured success in ways Eleanor would never understand. But she apologized without an audience. One Sunday afternoon, she came to the bungalow carrying a bag of apples and stood in the doorway like a stranger asking permission to enter. "I was cruel because I was afraid of being ordinary," she said. Eleanor looked at her for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Ordinary is not the worst thing to be, Claire. Unkind is worse. Claire nodded, tears slipping quietly down her face. It was not a dramatic reconciliation. No music swelled. No one clapped. Eleanor simply handed her a peeler, and together they made apple pie while Lily filmed only their hands. That video became one of the channel's most watched, not because viewers knew every detail, but because they could feel peace being kneaded into the crust. Years passed. The channel grew past 2 million subscribers. The cookbook became a bestseller in independent bookstores and church gift shops across the country. Eleanor used the money carefully. She paid off her bungalow. She opened education accounts for Noah and Lily. She created a small community grant for grandparents raising children on fixed incomes. When reporters asked how it felt to finally leave wealth behind, Eleanor always corrected them. "I am not finally leaving wealth," she would say. "I am finally leaving it in a form people recognize." Noah went to college in Michigan and called every Sunday. Lily studied media production in Chicago, saying she had learned the power of storytelling from a woman who never tried to be famous. Daniel visited twice a week and never again let silence do the work of cowardice. Claire, in her own imperfect way, learned to sit at Eleanor's table without needing to own the room. On Eleanor's 80th birthday, the family gathered in the same dining room where the first insult had been spoken years earlier. This time, the recipe box sat in the center of the table beside a laptop playing messages from viewers around the world. A teacher from Oregon thanked her for helping students interview their grandparents. A young father from Texas said he cooked Eleanor's chicken soup after losing his job and remembered that feeding his children with love was still dignity. An elderly woman from Vermont held up a wooden spoon and said, "Ellie, you gave me my kitchen back." Eleanor listened with both hands folded beneath her chin. Her hair was whiter now, her body slower, but her eyes were bright. Noah raised his glass. "To Grandma," he said. For leaving us everything she remembered. Years later, after Eleanor passed quietly in her sleep on a snowy January morning, the family returned to her bungalow. The kitchen was clean. The recipe cards were stacked in their wooden box. Her blue cardigan hung on the chair as if she had just stepped into the next room. Lily opened the laptop and pressed play on the very first video. Eleanor appeared, nervous and kind, peeling apples in one long ribbon. Her voice filled the kitchen. "My name is Eleanor Whitaker, but my grandchildren call me Grandma Ellie." Noah covered his mouth. Daniel bowed his head. Claire wept without hiding it. Outside, snow softened the porch steps. Inside, the room filled with a woman who had once been told she had nothing to leave. But there she was, alive in light, in sound, in flower, in memory, teaching them again that dignity is not stored in vaults. It is stored in the people who carry your love forward. And that day, the world remembered what a true inheritance looks like. If this inspirational family story moved you, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another dignity story about family legacy, life lessons, grandmother wisdom, and emotional storytelling. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever known someone who left love instead of money, or built a legacy no one expected? Your story may encourage someone watching right now. Continue to the next video on our channel for another powerful reminder that ordinary people can change lives in extraordinary ways. Thank you for watching, and we promise the next story will touch your heart even deeper.